So first I set my mind, then I read the title, then check the author information, and then I read the abstract. Read the abstract for at least 2 times, and then jump to the conclusion. So you will see why I do that. And again read the conclusion for at least 2 times. Then go to the introduction. Sometimes I go to introduction or the result. So it depends on the paper, and depends on what I found on the abstract and conclusion. So yeah, after conclusion I go to introduction, or I just simply jump to the result. So one of those, and then I go through some other sections. But it happens to me, maybe I'm reading the abstract and the conclusion, then I jump to introduction, then I read all the papers, and then result and the conclusion again. So it happens, sometimes works in that way too, but in general, read the abstract, then conclusion, then introduction, then result, and then rest of the papers, and then pay attention to some specific areas. So what does it mean by positive mind setup? So you should not set your mind before reviewing. I will reject it, or I will accept it. I will be too soft. I will be too harsh. You should not have this mindset. The reviewer's idea is to go through the whole paper and fairly review this paper. What does it mean? If whatever shortcomings you find out, you note it down and present it in a nice way, polite way. So you should not be too harsh or abuse the authors. Rather, you write down those comments in a way that is encouraging to them. So you need to remember, the author can be the undergraduate student, maybe the master's student writing for the first time, right? So they don't even know how to write a good paper, that maybe they were encouraged and they think they should put it down, but yeah, they are not experienced. So if you are too harsh, maybe that author will be discouraged to continue in research area. All right, so write those comments in a encouraging way, but you don't need to write the too much encouraging sentences. That is not proper as well. So write in a way that does not hurt them, and that kind of encourage them to fix the paper and submitting some other conference or journal later. So be encouraging, but not too actively, be passively. Now read the paper title. Once you read the paper title, you need to check it with the website or email from where you have downloaded this paper. So check the title is exactly matching with that email or website version or not. So the title can be completely different, or there can be minimal changes, maybe some one letter on comma here and there. So whatever changes you find, you should note it down and report it to the editor. Then make sure there is no irrelevant acronyms in the title. The titles should avoid acronyms. So if the acronym or abbreviation is too common and widely renowned, then it is not a problem. For example, IoT, Internet of Things, 5G, right? ECG, EEG, everybody knows these terms. So those terms are fine in title, but if some abbreviation or acronym that is not familiar or not widely familiar, then that should not be used. If there is any acronym, note it down and notify the author. Yeah, change the title. Also, you need to check the title is relevant or not. So you will understand after reading the whole paper. Once you read the whole paper, then uh, look at the title and say it is relevant, it is matching to the actual topic or not. Now author information, again author information you should check with the email or website from where you have started and you got this paper, right? So you should check the author names and information with that website or email, and also check the consistency. If there are more than one authors, you should uh, check the formats of for each author. One author may have email, other author may not have. One author may have address, other author may not have. But if there is this kind of inconsistency, you should note it down and inform the authors. And if you see the author name is different from the website or email, you should note it down and report to the editor. Now read the abstract. Once you read the abstract, you should again pay attention to the acronyms. If any acronyms abbreviation is used without introducing it, for example IoT. Before using IoT, they should in bracket write down Internet of Things, or they should write down Internet of Things in bracket IoT, or they can use I.E, this one, right? But any abbreviation or acronym is used, it has to be introduced. Then note down these following points. Those are important. See what has been proposed and how many things has been proposed. Then note what is the motivation or importance of this work. Then note down how it has been solved, what method they have proposed, right? Or what tools or equations or algorithms they are using to solve it. Then also note down why this solution is important. Usually those informations are given in the abstract. If those informations are not given in the abstract, then note it down. If you feel those information should be included in the abstract, let them know. Then also mark how many objectives and goals are written there and what are those. Also note down how many claims are there in the abstract and what are those. So you need to mark those carefully. Then you have to match are those all of those claims really addressed in the paper. What they said, is it really done, or is it really justified or not? So if any of them is not mentioned or not addressed in the paper, or whatever they have claimed is not backed by the evidence, you must need to note it down and write down in your comment. Now claims should be quantified if possible. For example, it claims is saying our proposed method is better than previous one. Then they have to say, well, better in what sense? So maybe in the terms of maybe speed, or maybe the efficiency. Our one is more efficient than previous one, or maybe our one is more accurate than previous one. They have to tell in what sense. Also they have to quantify it. So our one is more accurate than the previous one. Then you have to say in what percentage accuracy has been improved, how much, right? Our one is more efficient. So how much efficiency is increased, what percentage, right? So once there is any claim, you need to see the claim is from what perspective, and also is it quantified or not. If you think this claim has to be quantified, then tell the authors here quantify the claim. Then jump to the conclusion. So once you read the abstract, I would say just read it first time, read quickly and note down the different points. Just underline whatever the words is catching your mind, right? So then the second time read the abstract a bit slow, and then figure out all of those information. So sometimes once you start abstract, it's very hard to go through. I mean, you're not in the mood, or maybe the paper is not written in a way, or topic is out of your familiar writing style or track. Then it is hard to go through instead reading the paper. So it doesn't matter if you like it or not, it is easy to read or not. Just read through and write down, mark the keywords. And then the second time, read it slowly and try to figure out those information. If any information is missing from here, try to tell them to include. And after abstract, jump to the conclusion. Well, before jumping to the conclusion, there is another thing, the keyword, right? I have not listed here in the workflow, but I check the keyword uh, later after reading the whole paper. So the keywords they have included in this paper, you should carefully review them, and if you think some keyword is irrelevant, try tell them to remove it, or if you think that some keyword is missing, they should put that keyword in the keyword list. Encourage them to include that keyword as well. So after reading abstract, jump to conclusion or discussion and see that conclusion is consistent with the abstract or not. If the paper is not well written, it is very obvious. You will see there is inconsistency between abstract and the conclusion. Then, does it address all the goals and claims? So in abstract, if you see there are some objectives, the goals, right, and how they have solved it. And also it claims we did this and we did that, we found this and we found that, now it is better, that is. So all of those claims you should check, all of those addressed in the conclusion as well or not. And are those claims quantified? So in conclusion, those claims should be quantified. For example, some of them, some claims. So for example, yeah, as I said before, our work is proven better. Well, you write down in what sense and how much. If there is a future work, then verify if it is important to complete now instead of future. So there is sometimes there can be future work, but probably this future work is just avoiding the task for now. But that is important task to do right now to verify the claims, but somehow it is not done. So authors are trying to skip it and putting in the future work. So if the intention is like that, you need to figure out. Then go to the introduction. So again, check is it consistent with the abstract and conclusion. Check all the claims, all the goals and objectives, those are addressed or not. And again, check the acronyms. If there is any acronyms or abbreviations, those are mentioned without introducing it. Also, any terms throughout the papers, not only in the introduction, any terms that is not introduced, not defined, you should mention it and note it down, mention and define those terms. In introduction, also pay attention, are those objectives clear? Whatever is written, is it easy to understand and is it expression clearly? The idea is clearly described or not? Is the proposed methodology or solution explained clearly? So now they're proposing some solution, right, or some methodology. So what they are doing and how it is working, it has to be clear. Now figure out what is the novelty and contribution of the paper. That is important. If there is no novelty and no contribution, then the paper might be well written, but still it's not worthy to publish, right? Then if too many objectives and contributions and goals, then suggest the author to list them down using the bullet format. So probably the 5 objectives, write down the 5 objectives in bullet format. What are the contribution of this paper? If you are not sure what are the contributions and objectives, then tell them, okay, list it down. So later you'll be understanding easily what are the objectives and contributions, right? Also, you need to focus on the motivation and related work. Sometimes the related work there is a different section. If not, those things will be included in the introduction. So you should check the motivation of this work, why this work is important, and is it valid? Does it make sense to work on this? And also check the related work. The related work, those are cited properly or not, and then uh, check those work are contemporary or not, and then also see those work are criticized properly or not. So if they mention this work has been done but it was lacking this thing, that work has been done but this thing was not addressed properly, or maybe the way where they solved the problem they did not consider some aspect. So once they're mentioning some related work, they should address the work, and also they should address the positive and negative or the limitations of that work as well. So pay attention that work is addressed properly or not, and those works are contemporary and relevant or not. All information and claims should be coherent and backed by evidence and citation. So whatever statement and information and claims had been written in this paper, it should be logical, and it should be valid and backed by the evidence and citations. By evidence means with some maybe equation, with some proof on logical coherence, or it has to be backed by citations. Now, after setting up mind, paper title, author information, abstract, then keywords, if you want, you can read that. Then conclusion, you read introduction. Now jump to the result. So in the result, well, check the consistency with the abstract, conclusion, and introduction. Verify all the claims. All those claims has been addressed or not. All those objectives have been addressed or not. Then it should explain the simulation result. This section should explain the simulation experiment setup and methodology. So before presenting the results, this should write down how they conducted the simulation or the experiment. What is the setup, the lab setup or environment setup or the software setup or hardware setup. They have to explain those. Check sources of input data. So why this set of data, right? That means sometimes only the result is shown, by environment setup is also maybe explained, but they did not write down the or presented the input data. So you need to check the input data set has been provided or not. If it is provided, well, then they need to say why this input set of data. Sometimes a result work only for certain input, so you need to check this input is very specific, or it is justified, or it is so you need to read the sometimes it is not easy to understand this input is valid or not. Then you have to go back and read all other sections and proofs, the equations. Then it will make sense, well, this input data is valid or not. So first check the input data is given or not. If it is given, maybe they used some they presented those data in a table. So if it is presented, there should be explanation why they use this data. Maybe they just randomly chosen this data, there can be some explanation, or maybe they just took this data from that some other standard or some previous papers. So in that case they have to explain why they are taking that data from that standard or the previous paper, and they must need to address and cite that source and the previous paper. The results should be depicted using tables and figures or some other diagrams. We'll talk about those figures a bit later. All tables and figures should be addressed explicitly using table or figure numbers. So any diagram is given in the paper, table, diagram, algorithm, all of them should have numbers, figure number, table number, right, chart number, and also they have caption. They should have captions. So you need to check in the whole paper if any number, figure number, table number is not addressed explicitly in the text. You need to tell the author you have to mention that figure or the table explicitly and describe. So there cannot be any figure or chart without mentioning it. Now pay attention to the other sections. So again, check the consistency with whatever you have found in abstract, conclusion, introduction, and the result. Then the system model should be explained. System model sometimes is explained in the introduction. If you think a figure should be included to explain it, let them know you need to add a figure of the system model. The math equation algorithm. So for the any algorithm equation you're using, if and some important equations, those are not developed and proposed by the authors, then if those are taken from other different sources and papers, they need to cite from where they got the algorithm and the math and the equation. Now whatever solution they have proposed, whatever math they have developed, the equation they have developed or algorithm they are proposing, the model they are proposing, you need to understand and verify those. So is there any technical shortcomings, any mistake, or maybe not explained properly, or maybe explained you understood but should be it could be explained in a better way, let them know. Is the work novel, contemporary, important? Now after reading all of these, all the sections, you will have the answer. This work is important or not? This work is novel or not? What is their contribution? Is this work contemporary or not? So note those informations as well. Now some other things I mentioned already about the keywords, right? You need to check those keywords. Also any terms. Any terms in the entire paper you see it has to be explained or defined or introduced. Let them know you need to introduce those terms. Check all figures, tables, algorithms. See is it visibly clear or not. Then if see it is understandable or not. Those figures and the diagrams, tables should be self-explanatory. That means there should be enough number of labels, right? No labels should be missing. There should be x-axis labels, y-axis labels, z-axis labels if there is. The legends, all of those should be meaningful and clear. Clear means is easy to see and also easy to understand. Then captions should be elaborative. So the captions of the figures, tables, algorithms, they should be elaborative. So once you read the caption and look at the diagram, you should be able to understand what is going on there. Sometimes the captions are very simple, few words, but actually it does not explain what it is actually, what it is going on in this figure and what it is representing and what is the conclusion. Those things should be summarized in the captions. All figures, tables, algorithms should be addressed explicitly. As I said, once something is represented in the paper, any equation or figure or table or algorithms, diagram, those has to be mentioned in the text explicitly and explained. Check citations, are those relevant and contemporary? So check how many citations has been provided and those citations are relevant to this work or not. Those are contemporary or obsolete. So you need to do a quick search and survey about the citations, the reference papers. You see if there is any missing work that is related to this work but is not cited. Maybe somebody did similar work but not mentioned. so we have to note those works as well. And then check the format of the paper. So is that format maintaining the requirements provided by that journal or conference standard, right? And also go to the website of the journal and conference and read the instructions for the reviewers. So that is all. I think it will help if you are new in the field as a reviewer, and if you have any concerns you think it should be noted down, you can write it down in the comments so other people can be benefited.